Hello and welcome back to Refractions. I am Stephen Mallon and I am so psyched to welcome Denis Defibaugh joining us today. So hello and thank you, Denis.
Hello, Stephen. How you doing? It's been a while.
It has. So Denis, I don't know if you remember the years, but you were my professor in 1993 and 94. So
Well,
yeah,
I remember you. I don't know if I remember the years.
It has been 30 years. So yeah.
Oh man, that's incredible.
I know, I'm tearing up and getting afraid thinking about it at the same time.
Yeah, I know.
So yeah, I guess for the few people that unfortunately were not able to have your class, can you just tell us a little bit about your history with photography and as a professor?
Well, I was a commercial photographer in Atlanta, Georgia, and did still life, people, really just did a little bit of everything to make it work in Atlanta. So, but it was pretty stressful for me. And my wife, Elaine, and she got to the point one day and said, if you don't think about another career, you're probably going to have a heart attack by the time you're 35 or something. So I started thinking about teaching and ended up finding out about a job opening at Colorado Mountain College in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, and applied for it. And somehow I got the job there without any teaching experience. And that was more stressful than doing commercial photography. And but anyway, it turned out to be great. I loved teaching. I loved Colorado. And but the problem was it was a 2-year school. And I needed to be with people that were planning on a career in photography. So I applied to a job at Texas A&M Commerce, which had a pretty good advertising program. So I went there, I taught there for 4 years, and I was ready to leave. And I got a job at RIT. And it's funny, you'll like this. At the same time I was applying for RIT, I was applying at University of Delaware. And I had the interviews really close together, and RIT offered me the job, and I called University of Delaware and asked them, what the status was on this. And in some ways, I really wanted the Delaware job more than RIT. And I talked to the dean and I told him, what's happening there, because I'm interested in teaching there, but RIT has already offered me a position and I have to decide. And he goes, if RIT offered you a job, why would you come to the University of Delaware? And I go, I guess that's my answer, right?
Wow.
And so the next day I called RIT and got, the job teaching there. And I taught, that was 1987. So I started teaching in 87 and I just retired in 2020. So it was a long run at RIT, did a lot of different things, had a lot of exhibitions, was still shooting commercial work. And so it was good. Had students like Stephen Mallon that made my day every day. And I taught mostly advertising type courses at RIT and was chair of the program probably, 10 years out of the time I was there. So it was all good.
Yeah, I remember and just felt that like the students that kind of graduated and towards you and everything were like the ones that had a certain amount of personal vision. They were like, motivated and pretty addicted, I guess, to photography. It's like
Yeah, I think people that wanted to work and wanted to push themselves, and um, that was important to me. And it was, people that had a sense of, this is what I want to do. Maybe they didn't have a direction to their work, but the important thing was that they would experiment and try different things and work hard. And I mean, yourself how many successful photographers came out of RIT, and how many influencers of photography came out of RIT. And it's still the same today. It's just not quite as many students as when you were there.
It must have shrank especially in the past like 10 years, because just this competition for like tuition, the number of schools that are out there. And
Yeah, I don't really think it's so much the competition. I think really right now, I think maybe SCAD would be the only real competition. But the thing is, I think there are just so many other jobs out there that a lot of people don't want to be behind the camera, and I think the iPhone, the cell phones have made less and less work available for photographers, high-end photographers, but they're still working. There's still a lot of grads working in photography right now. You're one of them. So but it's not the same, definitely, as it was 30 years ago. It's a new world, and there's always something new coming out. It was the telephones or the cell phones, and now it's AI, and what's going to happen with that. And so it gets tougher and tougher all the time, to be behind a camera.
oh yeah, I mean, I remember that, when we were there was a separate, the Esprit course, was electronic still photography.
Yeah.
It was the whole aspect of the possibility that digital was going to be the capture device. And it was, it was about not doing film-based photography.
Right.
It was a
Right.
separate elective course. And I was like, yeah, sure. But let me just experiment with this a little bit.
And it just kind of took over.
Yeah.
But it's kind of funny. Once digital caught hold, and everybody was going to digital direction, it was really, really difficult to get students to take analog courses. And now they're clamoring for analog courses. They want to take, collodion process, non-silver processes. They want to shoot film. They think it's really cool and new.
It's because they grew up with the digital cameras, right? Like between the iPhone and what other device and everything, like just they had digital accessible to the alternate. The thing they don't have access to is the wet darkroom.
Right. And now they're excited about it. They love it. I don't know how much they're going to do it when they get out of school, but they love taking those courses. It's a whole new experience for them, which I think it's good. It works.
Yeah. I'm teaching one course at a university in Newburgh, and a lot of them have never, it's an elective course for non-photo majors, and like most of them have never handled an actual camera. Like they've been shooting, but it's been, strictly on this digital platform, and they've never had to be actually controlling anything about the, photography other than what to shoot. And so just even that aspect of like having these choices, it's like for them, it's like, wow, just the
Right. Yeah. So things change.
Things do change.
Yeah.
So you are on, I guess, a little bit of the book tour right now?
Well, it kind of just ended. I was in Pensacola, Florida for an exhibition that really just came down. And I don't have anything scheduled following that. I hate to say,
Okay, so
but
this is the
it was
tail end of.
traveling. Yeah, that's the book. It was traveling for 2 years, and it was at the Fenimore Art Museum in Cooperstown for almost a year, from
Wow.
April until December, and got good turnout there, a lot of positive press, and um, the space, it was a beautiful space. It was the largest space in the museum, and it was exciting for me to see my exhibition there. But during my exhibition, Elliot Erwitt's exhibition was right beside mine. So you had to go through my show to see Elliot's show. That was like an amazing experience, and his show was amazing as well. So that
Your
was nice.
neighbors.
Yeah. And the whole, we really haven't talked much about Greenland and going there and how the whole process came about. And if
How
you want,
did it? Yeah, no, let's dive
yeah,
into it. How
yeah.
how did the project begin? And talk to us about it.
Well, I ended up at Plattsburgh, SUNY Plattsburgh, at the Rockwell Kent Museum there, looking at the museum. I always loved Rockwell Kent's work, and his work from Greenland, his paintings are just amazing, and his prints, he did wood cuts, wood block prints, and they're so rich. And then he wrote, I don't know, probably 3 books about Greenland, N by E, which kind of influenced North by Nuke, and Salamina is another book of Greenland that he produced. They're just amazing books to read, and just the illustrations that he did for them are just incredible. They're all wood cuts or drawings or lithos that he did for them. So I was there looking at his work, and I ended up meeting the curator of the museum, and I was telling her how much I loved Rockwell Kent and his prints and everything. And she goes, "Have you ever seen his photographs?" And I go, "No, I didn't know he made photographs." He was a real Renaissance man. He was an architect. He was a designer. He did everything, and everything he did was just of the highest quality. And so we went into her office, and she opens this cabinet and pulls out this little wooden box. She had like 3 of them, and she handed it to me, and she goes, "Take a look." And I opened it up, and it was like a little file there, and they all had glass negatives in each file. And I pulled one up and looked through, put it up to the light, and it was like a diamond, like a jewel that I was looking at. And it was just a black and white photograph that he made in Greenland. Then it was hand colored. And I don't know who did the hand coloring on it. I don't think it was Kent. And but it was just so exciting to see that. And I go, "Man, this is incredible." And the first thing I'm thinking also is like, man, this is something I can kind of wrap my work around, and maybe some way of getting to Greenland to photograph this. And so with that, I started a project and applied to National Science Foundation for funding. And I worked with Mark Nuttall, who's a professor at Calgary. He's also the head of climate change in Greenland at the University of Greenland, about this project. And he goes, "Yeah, this sounds amazing. I'd love to work with you on it." So we applied for NSF and it was rejected. And Anna Korchula, who was the head of social sciences at NSF, she said, "This is a great proposal. You just have to write it better and make it something, something that, you know, all these scientists that are looking at it, refer to and respect." And so, you know, I talked with Mark and he goes, "Okay, I'll try it. I'll try it one more time." And so we applied again a year later, and it was rejected again. And Anna, she goes, "You were so close. You know, they love it, but it has to be written in a different way, and you know, it has to be more science oriented." And so, you know, I told Mark, you know, there it was rejected again. He goes, "That's bullshit. I'm not gonna reapply." He goes, "If you want to do this, I can find money." And I go, "No, I really want to try one more time with the National Science Foundation." And so Anna and I got together, and you know, we found like really 3 more people to work with me, and they were all based in Greenland. You know, one was Inuit historian, one was from Denmark, but she's been teaching in Greenland for 20 years at the university, and then a PhD student from University of or SUNY Binghamton. And so we wrote up another grant and it was awarded. We passed all the requirements, and it was incredible to, I spent a year and a half in Greenland, and you know, I had funding to do the things that I wanted to do. I photographed every day. It was really to document the Inuits in Greenland and 4 communities that Rockwell Kent lived in. And it was just, it turned out to be just an amazing experience. The person from Greenland, Axel Jeremiason, was just incredible. You know, he was a journalist, or not really a journalist, but more of a scholar in terms of journalism of Greenland. And he just introduced me to everyone, and, you know, helped me get through all the process of not knowing the language, and which was very, very difficult. And you know, it was just, so his help was incredible. So I started photographing a little town called Itzlorswit, and that's where Rockwell Kent lived for several years, like 2 years in the couple trips that he did there. And I got to know everybody. And I was telling someone the other day, it's like after a year and a half being there, when I first got there, I would go into an airport and not know anyone. You know, it was just full of people that I had no idea who they were. By the time I left, like in Itzlorswit, it was a small little helipad, basically. 9 people would get into the helicopter and I would know everybody. And then I would fly to Umanak, which also was a helipad, and 9 more people would get in and 9 would get out or whatever. And I knew everybody. And then we would fly to Sissamute, and I knew about half of the people that got on the airplane at that time. And then to Nuuk, and I didn't know that many people, probably a handful, but it was just amazing, the lifestyle, the experiences, the food. I ate just about everything you can imagine: whale, polar bear, seal, some birds. I don't know what kind of birds. And even things that were like almost, they made salads out of them. They were just little leafy plants, and yeah, it was just a cultural experience that I don't think could happen anywhere else.
Doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, and it could be cold too. And
How cold?
well, probably maybe the coldest, maybe 25 below or so. And it didn't even feel that bad. Rochester actually feels colder than sometimes than it does in Greenland. So, but it was, I would be out on the fjords photographing out in the middle of nowhere I don't know how thick the ice was, but thick enough for me to walk around and everything. And it's just another world. So yeah, I loved it.
Just from a technical question, just about shooting in the deep cold and everything, outside of like some condensation issues and everything, did you have any equipment issues about being in the cold like that?
No, everybody was warning me about, you're going to have problems with equipment because it's so cold and everything. Some people were suggesting keep it outside, don't bring it in the house. And I didn't do any of that. And my house wasn't that warm either, but
So maybe that helped.
yeah, but Nikon was kind enough to let me use cameras, and I never had a single problem with cameras freezing up. I mean, they froze up. I would walk into the house and it was like a ball of ice. And the camera was a ball of ice, but they always worked. They never died. I always made sure I had extra batteries. I always tried to keep it close to my body, so, to keep the camera warm. But yeah, it was, maybe I just got lucky. I don't know, but you figure 6 months out of the year, you're in snow and ice and, falling rain. And there's one photograph in the book. It's a picture of a yellow boat, or not a yellow, an orange boat. And we're going through this fjord to pick up some people on the far end of the fjord. It's a pretty long trip. It was probably 30 miles or so. And it was so cold, and I'm sitting on the end of the boat photographing and everything. We're going through icebergs and, it's like snow and ice and everything. And I was doing the editing of these photographs and thinking, I just was remembering, man, I was so cold when I was doing this. And I looked at the metadata and it was taken on August 21st. And one of the warmest days of the year in Rochester, but it was just cold, very cold. But there were other times, even the photograph that you have on the first scene, before the show started, it was very cold. It was probably 20 below that day.
Ouch.
And those two guys on that dog sled, they weren't even wearing gloves. They're fishing, doing ice fishing, and they're running around, and it's getting colder. It was getting colder as the day, came into light and things like that. And but luckily we were out about 5 or 6 hours, and then they decided to go back in. But that was one time I started getting cold. But most of the time you dress for it, and you take care of yourself, and but it is cold.
So you shot basically like every day. You were just capturing everything and anything. So
yeah, it was just, I always thought about William Eggleston, a democratic approach, anything, everything. I did a lot of portraits. I did a lot of landscape. I shot things many, many times. the panorama that you talked about in the book, I shot that panorama probably a half a dozen times. And
I don't know if I can get it even fitted in because it's so many images
yeah,
and it flips
yeah,
over it and then,
that was my view every day, just about. And, I would go up where the helipad was, and there was a cemetery on top of the hill, and I would photograph. And it was just incredible. And that one day, I don't know how much time we have, but
we're good.
It was probably my best day in Greenland. I was in Islorsuit. I go out every morning. I would get up and go out and photograph. And it's just a tiny little town. There's no roads. There's no running water. There's, there are no vehicles, no cars. But there was always something to photograph. So this day I go out and I'm photographing, and an Inuit friend of mine comes up to me, and he didn't speak English, but he gives me like a leather necklace with a miniature like Eskimo or Inuit leather drum on it, but it was carved out of reindeer antlers. And he told me happy birthday, and I go, how do you know my birthday? And he just smiled and kind of walked away. And then, all day long, people were like, little kids would come up to me and give me like a little tiny chocolate bar or something. And my neighbor Benjamin, who was great, he was fishing during the day, and he caught almost like a wheelbarrow full of wolffish. And wolffish I always called them the pit bulls of the ocean. Their head looks like a pit bull. It's big. It has big teeth that kind of stick out, and it could be 3 or 4 feet long easily. And but it's like white fish. It's really, really nice fish to eat, but very dangerous. If you pull one into the boat, you're eating it to make sure it's dead before you do anything else. So anyways, he caught all these white fish, and he invited me to dinner at his house. And I go in, and he's got this big pot of water boiling with potatoes inside it and the fish inside it. And he puts it all on one big plate, and we go to the table. There's 4 of us. He puts it in the middle of the table. We all have a fork, and we just all eat from that plate. And it was so good. It was one of the best meals I had in Greenland. And then, I go, it was getting late, and I go, I apologize, but I have to go up and photograph the panorama. And he just kind of laughed, and, I left, and I go up on top of the mountain. And that's when I took that panorama you just showed. It was on my birthday. So I think there's probably three or 4 photographs in the book that I took during my birthday. It was just an amazing day of photographs, making great photographs, and being treated so well by the Inuits in that town. And then I don't even know how they knew it was my birthday. I never said anything. I think it was Axel that somehow got the word to them. But so, yeah, things like that were just really wonderful experiences. And so, yeah. And then there were days, and 18 months or so that I was there. There were days, it was lonely, it was quiet, I hardly talked to anybody. And, but most of the time it was very, very good.
It definitely looks like it. I mean, the book's fantastic. Um, Talk to me a little bit about the production on this like quadfold, because I feel like this is one of the things that photographers love to have and publishers hate to do.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't want to do it.
Well,
And,
how did you convince them?
well, the thing was they didn't mind so much printing it, but the problem was inserting it into the book. It had to be at the end of a signature, and there was I forget how many signatures there were. There were only maybe 6 signatures in the book, or 8 signatures in the book. And
Sorry, when you say signature, what do you mean?
it's like all these images are printed on one big sheet, and so it's folded into probably 8 pages. I think the signatures were 8 or 16 pages, and so they're just folded together. And so when the book is sewn together, they like having those signatures because it makes it stronger and everything. And he goes, well, we can only put it outside of the signatures. We can't put it inside the signature because it just won't work that way. And so then I only had like 8 choices of where it was going to go in the book. And some places it just wouldn't fit. It wouldn't make sense to have it there. So we decided to put it in the front and kind of start off with that. And so yeah, it definitely was something they weren't too excited about. And but I'm really happy it's in there. And I just kept pushing for everything that I wanted. And the printing is stochastic printing in the book. It's kind of it's not necessarily a screen. If you look at the dot pattern, it almost looks like squiggly little lines, not so much a dot pattern like offset printing would be. But it's really a beautiful printing process. And so I was so happy when they decided they would do it as a stochastic printing. And
I'm only familiar with like web offset printing and like the digital offset with the
yeah, it's offset. It's like a regular press, except you're not using a screen, with the dots.
Mm-hmm.
It's a random dot pattern, basically, is what it is. And it almost looks more like a print than it does like a printing press.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard to explain, but it's
good.
Yeah, it's really nice. I mean, it holds color much better and sharpness better. Like it had to be the images were at least 400 DPI.
Wow.
To print. But it was fun. And I was on press when they were printing it. And I know when I got there, all these pressmen are like, you could see them rolling their eyes. Here's his photographer. And I printed everything that's in the book. And so every print that's in the book, I had a color proof of. And it was, at first, I would pull them out and say, here's what it's supposed to look like. And they would, match it basically. And, but I could tell they didn't like doing it. And they were running, I think it was running on 2 or 3 presses. They did a cover on one press and then 2 other presses for the inside of the book. And so I was jumping from one press to another to proof it. but by the end, they all got into it. It's like, if I was there, they said, "Where's the proof? Let me see the proof. We got to check this out." and so by the end of the day, they were all happy that it looked the way it did, and that they're just used to running things and going by the numbers and not really looking at anything. And there's nobody there that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So I think at first they didn't like me being there, but it ended up being a fun day.
Nice.
Long day, really long day. But
And it's an RIT press, right?
no, it was printed at in Kentucky. Wait, yeah, it was printed in Kentucky.
Okay.
I think Clarksburg is the name of the town, just north of Nashville. So they're one of the biggest printing companies in the US. So RIT Press was just the publisher. So they didn't print it. RIT doesn't have really any presses anymore. They got rid of everything. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I saw the RIT press on there, and I assumed that it was like down in the basement. But that's I guess from my days.
Right. And a lot of people are like that. Oh, I'm glad RIT printed it. And I said, no, there's no press there anymore. It's just the name of the publishing company, RIT's publishing company, is RIT Press. And they do a number of photo books. They did one for Forrest McMullen. I think it was Southern, I forget the name of it, but it was about Southern photography, Southern landscape, and they do a good job.
So did you have to pitch it just like any other? I mean, I guess you got a little bit of a leg up because your relationship to the university, but
no, I had to push it and pitch it. And the thing is, it wasn't that difficult because the funding was there.
Right.
And everybody wants that.
At that point, they're probably pitching for you. No, come with us.
Right. Yeah. And I had to do it so quickly because, the funds were running out, and, my whole contract with NSF was running out. So I wanted to get this all printed before that happened. And then COVID happened just after. The book came out in January. It was printed in 2019, but it came out in January in the middle of COVID. So it just sat in a warehouse for I don't know how long, at least a year. Nobody wanted books. It was like the worst possible time to make a book.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've experienced that. Everybody has probably experienced something with COVID that just totally ruined everything.
I had a solo show open, I think first week of March or late February. And we were having a brunch, and there was these little whispers about this pandemic that was kind of making its way there. And I had gone to the art fair. It was like the Art on Paper was having an event, and then we were holding a brunch at the gallery because they were in the Lower East Side at the time, and the fair was down on one of the piers. And we were like, do you think? And I was like, yeah, it was kind of a little bit of a thinner turnout. I don't know if it's going to be a real big deal or not. I mean, we'll see. And yeah.
And it was, the whole thing shutdown was within a day, kind of. I know people that had an opening on a Friday and the show was shut down on a Monday.
Yeah.
And Yeah, the whole thing was kind of crazy. I know I was doing, I did field trips to Cuba every year. Well, for about 20 years almost. And we were in Cuba. We got a call from RAT saying the school's going to be closing. And
Get back.
they didn't tell us anything what to do. They just told us the school is closing. And so, I mean, we didn't change anything. We came back like that weekend, and luckily we came in through Toronto and no problems. It was a Friday. And then I don't know if you remember Deb Kingsbury or not. She was the head of student services, and she had a group of students. I think it was in Germany or Iceland. I can't remember exactly, but they were coming from Europe. And they came into the country and they were quarantined for 2 weeks. And they came in on a Saturday and we came in on a Friday.
Wow.
And so we lucked out by 1 day. And so,
Crazy.
yeah. But
Oh.
yeah, Cuba's a great place too. It's just a little different than going to Greenland.
You gonna do a book on Cuba?
You know, there's so many books on Cuba. I feel good about my work from Cuba, and it definitely could be a book, but who needs another book about Cuba? That's my feeling.
What do you want to do next?
Well, right now I'm working on a project with a monastery just north of Cooperstown. It's a Russian Orthodox church, the Holy Trinity Church. And the church started in the 1920s when the Bolshevik Revolution happened in Russia, and they were killing Russian Orthodox, like crazy. And so they all became refugees and came to the United States and moved to just north of a place called Jordanville, just north of Cooperstown, New York, and set up and built a church and built a whole monastery and everything. And it's pretty amazing place. And so I've been photographing there for about a year. And actually, a friend of mine told me about it, and he goes, when you're in Cooperstown for your show, you should stop up and find, this Russian Orthodox monastery. And I go, well, where is it? And he goes, well, just drive north and you'll see the big gold onions in the sky. And I did. It's weird.
Gold onion.
Yeah.
I guess that's, yeah. It took me a second.
Yeah. And so I went, and it just happened. It was a Monday morning and it was Pentecost, which I didn't even know. And so I go, and I had shorts on, so I couldn't go into church or anything like that. But I met this one woman, and she asked where I was from, and I told her, and she goes, oh yeah, I know Rochester. I like Rochester. And she goes, are you doing a project about the monastery? And I go, I have no idea. and she goes, you should talk to Father Innocent, and he maybe can get permission for you to photograph here. So she introduced me to him, this Father Innocent, and I go, I was so lucky to come here on Pentecost and see all this, celebration and everything that's going on. And he goes, that's not luck, that's God's will. And I go, maybe it's God's will that I do a project here. And he goes, I think it is. So I've been going there since just about a year now. And it's going well, I think. I like the photographs I have. I got to get a little more diverse in what I'm shooting, and more, I think, maybe a little closer, more intimate with what I'm shooting. But yeah, I've learned to stand for like 6 hours in the middle of services, and you know, and be transformed by the choir and everything that's going on in there, and from tiredness and everything. But it's, the people are very nice, and they're amazing, what they do. um so yeah, that's what I'm working on now. And so yeah, I have a couple different things going. I did a series on extinct species, and it was all photographs in natural history museums of specimens in their collection of extinct species. And I shoot everything with 4x5 black and white Polaroid.
Oh, wow.
So it's extinct too.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
and it's amazing. I shoot it, I don't clear it, and I just let it like disintegrate or decompose or oxidize or crystallize, and then I scan it as RGB and print it in color. And the color is amazing, just from all the oxidation and the color that becomes part of the silver
Wow.
from not being processed.
Where can everyone see those images? Are
Oh,
up
they have to
online?
come to my house to see them. Yeah, I've shown them a couple places, but I was working on that when I got the Greenland project. And so Greenland took all my time ever since that time. And so that project has been just on hold right now. But I like that as well. And
I'm looking forward to seeing that.
yeah, and I print them large. They're like, I don't know, 3x4, 3x5
Nice.
feet in size. Pretty nice.
Please bring one when I see you.
Yeah. I can send you some or email you some.
I'd love to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, I had some on my website, and I was doing so much with Greenland. I got rid of everything else on my website except for the Greenland work. And so I'll, now that Greenland is slowing down, I'll start to add things into it, maybe like Cuba and the extinct species and the monastery and things like that, and do it more instead of a singular site.
If people want to buy the book, where should they go?
Well, a lot of different, they could go to Amazon, they could go to RIT Press, they could just email me, and I could sign it and send it to them. Yeah, it's not, almost everything is online now, instead of like going to a bookstore. But I think most, I don't know, people buy from me, they buy from RIT, and they buy from probably Amazon the most.
Yeah.
Of the book.
Oh, awesome. This was so great. Dennis, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm excited.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And it must be fun doing these, because you get to meet so many different people and talk to different people and all the different experiences.
It is. It's been really, it's a nice treat just because there's some people that I know really well where, you and I have talked about photography, on and off for
Yeah,
decades.
forever. At least 30 years, right? Yeah.
So, it's good, I think, too, just, sometimes people are able, because they want to sit in and they want to hear what the conversation is like, and I
Mhm.
sometimes gotta like, it's a treat for other people as well. And it was good to catch up and hear the stories and everything, because we haven't had a chance to dive in, because like you said, because of COVID, I haven't seen you in person in,
Yeah,
4 years.
yeah, yeah.
So, so
And it is.
congratulations.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. But it is fun to just talk about photography and talk about experiences, and that's a great part of what you do,
Thank
you know,
you.
bringing those to life and making that discussion available to people.
Thank you. No,
So
it's been a treat. So thank you again, Dennis. Thank you,
you're welcome.
B&H. I will be back in a couple of weeks. We've got some amazing guests. They're not all scheduled yet, so I can't release any names, but we've got some wonderful people. And Dennis, please, I hope you can listen in, and hopefully we'll have you on again when the next show or next project is out.
Sounds good to me.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
All right. Thanks, Stephen.
No problem. Bye, Dennis.
See you next time.
Sounds good.
Bye.